freedom. We'll get into that in our second hour. In our third hour, it's going to be fascinating. I've mentioned to you a number of times this extraordinary book by Chris Ryan, Civilized to Death, The Price of Progress. He's going to drop by, and we're going to have an extended conversation. I think you're going to really find it interesting. You know, what did we lose when we moved from being basically hunter-gatherers to being, you know, what we are now? It's like, what did we lose? What changed? So, but, you know, to start out, this whole idea of the most powerful word in politics, there is one word that Republicans used to use against Democrats. I mean, you know, when Newt Gingrich came to power, came to the U.S. Capitol in 1996, as I recall, and became Speaker of the House. It wasn't when he came to the Capitol, but, you know, when he rose to Speaker of the House, he did it based on the idea that the Clinton administration was corrupt. He was my congressman back then. I lived in Georgia at the time. And we lived in Marietta, which was his district, and he had run as an anti-corruption candidate. That was his whole shtick, you know, I'm fighting corruption. If there is one word that Republicans fear more than any other word, it's corruption. And for good reason, because when a party or when a politician is genuinely corrupt, when corruption is a real word, is a real thing, that word can bring down not just governments, but individual politicians, or maybe I should say not just individual politicians, but governments. Alexei Navalny used the word corruption against Putin. In fact, the foundation that Navalny ran in Russia before he was put in prison was called the Anti-Corruption Foundation. He published a video about Putin's corruption that has been seen more than 117 million times on the internet. Corruption was the word that President Zelensky, the current president of Ukraine, used against his predecessor, Mr. Poroshenko. Zelensky, you'll recall, was just an actor. He was a comedian on a TV show where he goes on this rant about how corrupt the government is, and the people elect him president in the show. And then he did it in real life. That's how powerful the word corruption was. In Guatemala, Jimmy Morales, who became the president of Guatemala on an anti-corruption platform, his official slogan was, "Not corrupt, not a thief." Naftali Bennett just became the new prime minister of Israel, pushing out Benjamin Netanyahu with this extraordinary coalition. Yesterday, he said, Israel is not a monarchy. Every government, when it becomes withered and corrupt, is eventually replaced. And, of course, that was very much the case. The Arab Spring. Stuart Levy noted on Fareed Zakaria's blog back in 2011, Egyptian courts have charged former President Hosni Mubarak with corruption. Frustration with corruption is the key grievance of those protesting in the streets in Libya, Syria, and Yemen. Corruption was what took down Richard Nixon. People hate corruption, right? And there are a couple of reasons why. Number one, corruption damages faith in the political system in the country and thus damages the country itself, number one. Number two, corruption weakens democracy. It's kind of a subset or a function of, you know, item number one. And number three, corruption typically involves enriching yourself or enriching your friends or some variation thereof, and that's a form of theft from we the people. So, I mean, this is all the stuff that is corruption, and this is a word that we need to be using against Republicans. The Democrats need to be using this word corruption against Republicans as aggressively as they possibly can. And, you know, unless you have a suggestion for a better word, I mean, this is just, you know, Frank Luntz, when he poll tested Newt Gingrich's word list back in the 90s, the most powerful phrase that he came up with that Newt Gingrich used constantly was, quote, corrupt liberal welfare state. You know, and I mean, this has been going on for a long time. So what do we have here? Donald Trump, a corrupt real estate developer who ran a corrupt campaign with help from corrupt Russian oligarchs, created the most corrupt presidency in the history of the United States. Bill Barr, his investigation of Democrats, his subpoenas, even going after Don McGahn's personal information, he corrupted the Justice Department. He should be always referred to as the corrupt former Attorney General. Elaine Chao's wife, who's self-dealing as Secretary of Transportation, should be headlined with phrases like corrupt former Transportation Secretary Chao, or DeVos, or Rick Perry, or Wilbur Ross, or Steve Mnuchin. I mean, we have a lot of words to describe what Republicans have been up to since the beginning of the Reagan Revolution, and we've used a lot of words over these last 40 years. But at the heart, it's all corruption. Reagan cutting his arms for hostages deal with Iran to defeat Jimmy Carter. That was corrupt. His illegally overturning Central American governments, creating today's border crisis, was corrupt. His taking money from billionaires for cutting their taxes and deregulating their industries was corrupt. President George H.W. Bush pardoning everybody involved in the Iran-Contra treason and thus shutting down the special prosecutor's investigation to aid or to avoid his own prosecution. It was corrupt. George W. Bush and Dick Cheney lying us into 2 unnecessary wars so they could get Iraq's oil for their donors and fellow oil industry executives. That was corrupt. It cost our nation a fortune in money. It's still costing us American lives. And what Republicans are trying to do right now with our elections, trying to make it harder for Democrats to vote, is corruption. And these new laws that give Republican officials the power to throw out or ignore votes from mostly black and Hispanic neighborhoods, it's massively corrupt. This phony audit that the Republicans are running down in Arizona right now, it's corrupt, in addition to being an open violation of federal law. And corrupt Republicans in other states are now trying to replicate it. I mean, you had Donald Trump with his corrupt perpetual self-dealing, from having Air Force planes stop in obscure Scottish airports so that we could pour money into his hotel there, to the Secret Service paying millions to Trump properties, to Trump's refusal to release his income taxes, to the Secret Service having to set up porta potties outside Jared and Ivanka's place because they wouldn't let him use them use the bank. It's all corruption. His attempt to end American democracy on January 6th, Trump's effort, it was the ultimate corrupt act, as are his ongoing lies about the 2020 election. Bottom line, and you know, as I said, you know, if you have thoughts on this, if you have suggestions on this, 202-808-9925 is our telephone number. But, you know, the bottom line here, this is corruption. And we all need to start using this word, corruption, to describe Republicans at every turn. Democrats need to put the word corruption in every single ad they do. I mean, it's literally the most powerful word in politics. They should put, the DNC should use the word corruption in their press releases, in their descriptions of Republican actions and policies. Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, needs to say the word corruption whenever she refers to the GOP or corrupt billionaire-owned right-wing TV and radio networks. Democrats have to play hardball, bottom line. Future of our republic is at stake. And when your opponents are deeply corrupt, using the word corruption isn't just a strategy, it's an imperative. We'll be back in a minute. Mark Carlin's going to drop by from BuzzFlash to give us some thoughts on Merrick Garland, who he went to high school with. Interesting, and he has followed his career, so I think it's worth listening to what Mark has to say, because I have not followed his career. I'm curious to learn more about this guy. We'll be back at 16 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with Mark Carlin, and then picking up your calls as well right after this. Hey, did you see where the House Republicans have now committed in writing to raise the Medicare and Social Security eligibility age to 69? No, I'm not making that up. It is true. 69. The House Republican Study Committee, they've got 152 members, and they came out with their alternative budget last week. Actually, it was about 2 weeks ago. And this is their proposed alternative to Joe Biden's budget. And Washington Post's Henry Olsen lays this out. He says it wasn't exactly filled with new ideas. They want to slash spending by $14 trillion over the next 10 years. Honest to God, cut spending by $14 trillion. And how do they, what do they want to do with this? Well, they apparently forgot that they were the party that helped Trump single-handedly add $8 trillion to the national debt. But anyhow, this is one of their pieces. Quote, the age at which one receives full Social Security benefits would go up to 69 by 2030, from a planned rise to 67 in 2022. Medicare's eligibility age would also rise from 65 to 69. 69 is the new 65. Yeah, I can hear it now. This is the great new Republican strategy, right? It's going to work just wonderful. I find myself rather skeptical, but, what do you know? What do you know? Anyhow, Cannon in Maple Valley, Washington. Hey, Cannon, what's on your mind today? Cannon? I'm not getting audio. Let me try Ron in Philadelphia. Ron, can you hear me? Oh, no. Our phone system is down. We had a power failure over the weekend. We need to reboot all this stuff. Amazing. Okay, so Mark Carlin probably won't be with us. And, hey, Joyce, can you reboot oh, they're doing it right now? Okay, great. I hate it when we have power failures. The entire power for our neighborhood went down for about 3 hours on Saturday morning, and it seems to have scrambled all kinds of things. The new GOP logo, we make the mistake, you just pay for them, right? Scrap Medicaid, scrap the Children's Health Insurance Program, scrap the Affordable Care Act. They want to convert Medicaid, CHIP, and the Affordable Care Act, the Republicans do, into block grants so they can gift them to the states. I mean, this is just nuts. It is beyond nuts. So, we'll see where it goes. But it's incredible. Anyhow, we'll be right back. Stick around. So the phones are not working. And we're rebooting them though, right? Joyce? We rebooted everything, right? Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Over at the Thom Hartmann website, ThomHartmann.com, we have the full podcasts and there's just a lot of information, and our newsletter. And the newsletter's extraordinary. It's free. Sue puts it together every day with her stack, and it's just great content. Links to every single article that I talk about on the air, and things that are peripheral to them as well. It's really worth the effort. And then, of course, at HartmannReport.com, there is my daily rant, which is typically incorporated into the program, but it's a written version of it, and that's also something that there's no cost for that at all. So you can check that out as well. Also, we've got a new video up about the dueling memes. If at first you don't succeed, try again, or the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Schumer is going to try to do what Harry Reid did in 2013 by forcing votes. Will it work? We'll see. Check it out at ThomHartmann.com. box of. Well, for some reason we're not. I think maybe we've got phone audio, but Joyce was trying to get Mark Carlin on the line, and it was not working. I want to just test our system here. Cannon in Maple Valley, Washington. Cannon, can you hear me? Yeah, we don't have audio coming into the board apparently. Okay, because I cannot hear Cannon. I'm going to put him on hold and let him talk to Joyce. Joyce's system is apparently working, but we've got a routing problem. You have called Chase, right, Sean, to come in here right away? Okay. All righty. Well, I'm going to share with you. Here's what happened. I'll just, by way of apologies or whatever. We had a power failure for about 3 hours on Saturday morning. We came in, spent most of the day here Sunday rebooting everything, trying to bring everything back up, and apparently a few things did not connect, and my apologies. We'll get this fixed, but it may take a little bit. So anyhow, Mark Carlin is the editor of BuzzFlash. He's an old friend too, and also an old gun rights activist or gun safety activist. Gun control activist, I think it would be a better way to say it. And he wrote this remarkable letter to the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. He says, Dear Merrick, you may not remember me. We were both honor students 1 year apart at Niles West High School, a public high school in the Chicago suburb of Morton Grove. Mark says he graduated in '69. Merrick Garland graduated in '70. Mark went on to Yale. Garland went on to Harvard. But Mark has, he knew Merrick Garland, and he's kind of tracked his career all this time. And so, he talks about when Garland was appointed by Bill Clinton, and there's just a lot of it's over at buzzflash.com, and he talks about how Judge Lewis Kaplan rejected Bill Barr's original attempt to take this case, this E. Jean Carroll case, out of the Department of Justice. And basically, Mark is like, why are you doing this? It is not this is what Mark writes. It is, if the law is not ensuring justice, then it should be the law. It's not your role as Attorney General to save Trump from his own potentially illegal behavior. Law and justice must square. If the goal of the DOJ here is to once again use the excuse of preserving presidential immunity, then justice dictates that men or women who occupy that position should not be protected from their personal moral depravities. And this is, this is pretty straightforward. Mark notes, as he's talking to his old high school, classmate, Merrick Garland, he said, this is the problem in essence. Trump was stepping outside of the bounds of his office. The unqualified immunity extended to presidents has always relied on a particular assumption, and indeed a history, that a president will behave according to certain civilized standards. If the law justifies taxpayers paying for Donald Trump's salacious accusations, then it's up to the DOJ to write a directive that changes such enforcement of defending the indefensible. This is a really important point. I mean, the Clinton, well, actually, it started with the Nixon Justice Department, when they knew that Richard Nixon had committed crimes. Richard Nixon commissioned his Justice Department to write a memo, the Office of Legal Counsel, the OLC, to write a memo saying that we can't prosecute a sitting president. He's too busy keeping the world safe and preventing nuclear war. Then when Bill Clinton was being investigated for, the Monica stuff and lying and et cetera, and they thought they had him on crimes, Bill Clinton had the Justice Department write a memo saying, you can't prosecute a sitting president. And thus, when Donald Trump came along, here's two presidents in the past, a Republican and a Democrat, who had both had the DOJ write these memos saying, can't prosecute a sitting president. Sorry, Charlie. It's time to blow it up. And Mark lays it out really well, and he lays it out in this open letter to his old buddy, or his old classmate anyway, Merrick Garland, over at buzzflash.com. The title of the article, an open letter to U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, from BuzzFlash editor Mark Carlin, who attended high school with you. Defending indefensible behavior is not your job.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back. We're rebooting everything here, and hopefully I'll be able to pick up your calls on the other side of this break. We'll see how it works. It is $5 Friday. Yeah, we're trying something new here today. It's the last day of the second week of our fund drive, our pledge drive, and let's really build something. Let's build a strong foundation for Free Speech TV. Let's really make this happen, which is why I'm calling this $5 Friday. When you give a one-time gift to Free Speech TV, that's great, because that's, it's money in the checking account that helps pay the bills, and there's all these expenses associated with running a television network, electricity and staff and everything else. And even though Free Speech TV is run, really on a shoestring compared to big television, big commercial television networks, there are still a lot of expenses associated with getting the show from here to there to you. But when you give a regular monthly contribution, not only is it money in the bank, but it's also a predictable income stream that allows them to budget, to look out, 6 months in advance, a year in advance, and say, or 3 months in advance, whatever it may be, and say, okay, we know that we'll be able to make these expenses. We know that we can contract for this. We know that we can, bring on a new program now, whatever. I mean, you've got to be able to budget, right? You've got to be able to plan. It's just kind of, household 101, business 101. So $5 Friday today, my suggestion is just call Free Speech TV, even if you've called before, unless you're a regular monthly contributor already. But I mean, if you've made one-time gifts or whatever it may be, or if you've never made a gift, call now, 877-378-8669. Call now and say, sign me up for $5 a month for the next year. Or sign me up for $5 a month until I tell you to stop. And let's build that foundation, because that is the base of the pyramid. Everything else rests on top of this regular, predictable monthly income, this regular, predictable monthly revenue that is really so critical to any kind of an organization. It's probably the single biggest challenge that nonprofits have. And I ran a nonprofit for 5 years, and I was on the board for 40 years. The New England Salem Children's Village and the Hunter School. Louise and I started it back in 1978. And our biggest, and we were, supported largely by donations. And every month I had to write the newsletter, and I was traveling all around giving talks and raising money and talking to donors and stuff. And the most difficult part was not knowing what I could expect when I was running that nonprofit. And that's also the most difficult part for Free Speech TV, is not knowing what to expect, is having to deal with things like their emergencies at the last minute sort of thing. And we can solve that problem for Free Speech TV, you and me, especially if you've never donated before, on this $5 Friday with a $5 a month commitment. That's all I'm asking for today. I mean, yes, I'll go through the list of all the premiums and all the goodies and things that you can get, with larger amounts, donations, if you want any of those things. But I've been reciting those now for almost 2 weeks. I'm guessing you probably could, recite them in your sleep. But today, let's make it $5 Friday. Let's build the base. Let's build a foundation on which this network can rest, and rest comfortably. I don't mean rest like relax. I mean, be here, right? Be settled, be solid, have a firm foundation. All that build your home on a rock, not on sand stuff. So please call now, 877-378-8669 with your $5 a month commitment. For one-time gifts with larger amounts, $20, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker. $50, real change comes from the grassroots tote bags. $75, the collector's item Thom Hartmann mug. $100 gift, your choice of the Free Speech TV face mask or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. $120 gift, my book, The Hidden History of Oligarchy, signed by the author, or the Free Speech TV Justice t-shirt. $240 gift, the two-book set, Reclaiming Our Democracy book set, we're calling it, which is the hidden history of American monopolies and the hidden history of American oligarchy. Or you can join us for the Thom Hartmann meet and greet, kind of an off-the-record conversation on Zoom. $360, there's the Thom Hartmann University summer box set with the bumper our bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, Free Speech TV change from the grassroots tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann mug. And with a $1,000 gift, we'll put you in the line to come here to Portland, which is a beautiful town. I know we've all seen the footage of about a 5-square-block area downtown where there was so much conflict, but you know, that's like a part of Portland that most Portland residents never see, never go. You know, this is a beautiful town. Some of the greatest restaurants everywhere, anywhere. So anyhow, you can come and visit us with a $1,000 gift. But bottom line, it's $5 Friday. Call now. It's just $5, right? And if we can get lots and lots of people to kick in $5, we can build that foundation. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. Over at ThomHartmann.com, we have our newsletter, our regular newsletter that Sue puts together every day. It's got a link in it to every single article that I talk about on the air. So you can see, you know, the backup for everything that I have to say. It's free. You know, there's some ads in it that just, you know, pay for it, basically. But that's it. There's that. And then, of course, over at HartmannReport.com, also no charge, there is our daily rant. So those are two things on the internet that we have. We also, you know, periodically put up videos specifically for the people who are supporters of our program. And you can find our most recent one. It's about guns. This sheriff in Volusia County, the sheriff deputy there, asking the media, you know, where have we gone wrong when a 14-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy are having a shootout with deputies? And Texas passing this bizarre new gun law. Anyhow, it's all over at ThomHartmann.com. You can find it right
HelloFresh.com.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see if our reboot was successful here. Sean, you want to put the, let's see, Canyon in Renton, Washington. Can you hear me this time? It's the same funny, funky, buzzy noise. Yep, I'm going to put Canyon on hold. Somehow the audio is not getting into the Wheatstone board. All righty, so let me share some other observations with you. There is, you know, really a fairly remarkable amount of stuff that has been going on in the world. And the, hang on just a second here. And just to recap some of it, the excuse me, when you're trying to, you know, do stuff on the fly. Okay. So first of all, we had over the last 6 days 8 mass shootings over the last 6 days. I mean, just think about that for a minute. Actually, 9 separate mass shootings in the last 6 days. On Monday, on the, you know, last Monday, or actually it was a week ago Monday, May 31st. Oh, this is the June 6th. Okay. Well, I'm a week off. So, yeah, this is June. Yeah, okay. Whoops. So, you know, we've got all these mass shootings. There was one in Cleveland, Ohio. There was one in St. Louis, Missouri. There was one in Brooklyn, New York. There was one in Springfield, Mass. There was one in Magnolia, Arkansas. There was one in Toledo, Ohio. There was one in Muskegon, Michigan. There was one in Indianapolis. What are we going to do about this? You know, Trump made this comment that that we're going to soon have to ban cars because they're as dangerous as guns, right? Here's the most recent ones. This is from Amy Vanderpool, by the way, from her newsletter, Shiro. Monday, June 7, we had a mass shooting in Homestead, Florida. Also on Monday, a mass shooting in Cleveland, Ohio. Tuesday, you had mass shootings in Houston, Nashville, and Memphis. Thursday, you had mass shootings in Yonkers and Detroit. Friday, you had mass shootings in Dallas and Savannah and Seattle and Winston-Salem. And Saturday, you had mass shootings in Cincinnati and Austin. And Trump comes along and he says, you know, the way to solve this, he says, you know, if you're going to do gun control, you're going to have to do car control. Because cars kill people too. And in fact, a car did kill a person at a protest this weekend, although it appears that this was a person who was drunk as opposed to a person who was intent on homicide. But they're still trying to figure that out. So, yeah, okay. If cars can kill people, guns can kill people, then, you know, using Trump's logic and the logic of the right, why don't we just regulate guns the same way we do cars? Very simple. You got to have a driver's license, you've got to have a shooter's license, you've got to have insurance, and you've got to have, you know, it's got to be registered. Yeah, straightforward stuff. Meanwhile, we have legislators going to Phoenix. Now, the giant scam, this extraordinary giant scam is running in Phoenix right now, where they're pretending, essentially, to be recounting the vote. But in fact, instead of recounting the vote, what they're doing is they're scanning ballots with like infrared light, looking for evidence of bamboo fragments that might indicate that these were phony ballots that were flown in from China. I'm serious. This is their theory. And of course, no ballots were flown in from China, and there's probably not any bamboo fragments, although who knows where the paper originally came from. But now you've got 5 different states that have sent legislators to Phoenix to look at what's going on and say, oh, you know, this is interesting. Well, maybe we should do this, right? Republican legislators from Colorado, Nevada, Alaska, Virginia, and Wisconsin have been making this pilgrimage to Phoenix, Arizona to tour the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum, where they're doing this so-called Arizona model audit. Right. This is starting to get scary. I mean, this is an open assault on democracy. There is a federal law that says that you may not tamper with, you may not, that the government of Arizona, of the state of Arizona, may not release any of the ballots or any of the voting machines into the hands of anybody other than election officials in Arizona for any purpose. And what have they done? They've taken these actual ballots and actual voting machines and handed them over to right-wing cranks associated with the Donald Trump campaign, who are now inspecting them for bamboo particles. This is QAnon, right? This is the whole thing. And the Justice Department sends a letter to the state saying, you realize what you're doing is a federal felony. Well, in addition to that, Arizona's going to have to spend a small fortune because they're not going to be able to use any of these voting machines again. What are they going to do with the next election? The Republicans control the House and Senate in Arizona. Have they appropriated money for new voting machines? Are they just going to punt Are these guys reprogramming the voting machines so they only put Republicans in office? I mean, what's going on? We don't know. What we do know is that Republicans in 5 other states are going, hey, this is pretty interesting stuff. Colorado, Nevada, Alaska, Virginia, and Wisconsin. This is not healthy. This is not healthy at all. By the way, last Monday, and I didn't really cover this much, but last Monday, 4 attorneys from the Justice Department filed a brief in the district court saying that the charges against Donald Trump by E. Jean Carroll, suing him for defamation because he called her a liar about her saying that she raped him. 4 attorneys who work for you and me and the U.S. Justice Department have filed this brief saying, dismiss this case. E. Jean Carroll gets nothing. Donald Trump wins. It's amazing. Oh, and some good news. Last week, and this deserves a lot more coverage, actually. It hasn't been signed by Governor Paulus yet in Colorado. But last week, the Colorado State Legislature passed this sweeping health care bill that's supposed to reduce health care prices. And, you know, this might be, I actually need to learn a lot more about this, and we'll try to get a guest on about this, because I think this is absolutely fascinating. Amy Vanderpool in her Shero newsletter is saying, you know, this could be a state democratic experiment that could provide a roadmap for the rest of America. And, you know, and I think that's how it started in Canada. You know, it started in Saskatchewan, the province of Canada. You know, they're kind of their equivalent of a state. Tommy Douglas was the provincial governor, and he had been pushing this thing for 20 years. There's a whole chapter about Tommy Douglas and Canadian healthcare in my new book, The Hidden History of American Healthcare. And he got it passed in Saskatchewan with help from the federal government, because they had, you know, some supports already in place, sort of like we have, you know, with CHIP and things like that. And so he had some money from the federal government, but mostly it was state. It was the province. And it worked so well that other provinces in Canada said, hey, let's do this. Now, keep in mind, this was back in the 60s, either the late 50s or the early 60s, when the insurance companies did not have anything close to the power that they have right now. So, you know, whether this is going to work in Colorado, with the insurance companies just, you know, basically brutalizing the American people, extracting trillions of dollars every year from our pockets and putting it into the pockets of their senior executives and their stockholders. It's a very different time and it's a different country, but, you know, maybe we can overcome them. I think it's possible. I really do.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
First, let me try and put somebody. And we'll be right back. It's 45 minutes past the hour. Stick around. I just want.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Cokeland, The Secret History of Coke Industries and Corporate Power in America by Christopher Leonard. This is from the preface. On May 18th, 1981, 4 Wall Street bankers traveled to Wichita, Kansas. They went there to make an offer to Charles Koch, the CEO of an obscure mid-size energy company. The bankers from Morgan Stanley wanted to convince Koch to take his family's company public, offering shares for sale on the New York Stock Exchange. Their deal was squarely in line with the conventional wisdom of corporate America at the time. Going public was seen as a natural progression for companies like Koch Industries, offering them access to big pools of money and promising enormous paydays for the existing team of executives. All it required from the CEO was to surrender control. Morgan Stanley, in return, would collect a small fortune in fees. Charles Koch was 45 years old. He had run Koch Industries since he was 32 when his father died suddenly. He was trim, tall, and had an athlete's build. He spoke quietly in meetings and seemed almost passive. The bankers laid out their plan to take Koch public. They revealed what, to most executives at least, might have been the most significant detail. If Charles Koch agreed to the deal, he could earn $20 million overnight. The bankers seemed incredulous when they prepared a confidential memo about Koch's reaction. He does not want this cash, the memo reported. Charles Koch calmly explained to them why their offer made no sense. His company was breathtakingly profitable. It operated in vital, deeply complex corners of the American energy industry. During the 1980s, Koch Industries was the largest purchaser and transporter of U.S. crude oil. It owned an oil refinery. It employed teams of commodity traders who bought and sold a wildly diverse menu of raw materials and financial products, from gasoline to paper futures contracts. This might have encouraged most CEOs to take their company public. Koch Industries, however, did not want outsiders to know how much money its traders were earning. Taking the company public would expose too many of its secrets. The memo said, certain of Koch's commodity traders are particularly worried that their high salaries, once disclosed to the public, would be used against them by their trading partners. Secrecy was a strategic necessity for Koch Industries. Charles Koch did not want to surrender it. He also didn't want to surrender control. He had a specific, clear vision of how to run his company, and he didn't need Wall Street investors to interfere. If the bankers expected Charles Koch to go along with the conventional wisdom of their time, then they, like so many outsiders, did not understand him. Beneath his low-key veneer, Charles Koch was, at his core, a fighter. He had unmovable ideas about how things should be, and he did not back down when challenged. When he was challenged by his own brothers for control of Koch Industries, he fought them in a bitter legal battle that lasted decades. When he was challenged by members of a powerful labor union during his first years as CEO, he fought them even as they committed an act of industrial sabotage that nearly destroyed Koch's oil refinery. When the FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice launched a criminal investigation into Koch Industries' oil gathering business, Charles Koch fought them with every legal and political tool at his disposal. When a liberal Congress and President Barack Obama sought to impose regulations on the fossil fuel industry to control greenhouse gas emissions, Charles Koch fought them in ways that changed U.S. politics. In each of these fights, Charles Koch prevailed. When Charles Koch dismissed the bankers in 1981, it was just a small skirmish in the larger war to control Koch Industries. After prevailing in that fight, he created a company that was true to his vision. He avoided the snares that entangled many publicly traded companies that report their financial results to investors every 3 months. Koch Industries didn't have to think quarter to quarter. The company thinks year to year. An internal think tank and deal-making committee called the Development Group will sometimes think through a business deal on a timeline measured in decades. This long-term view made Koch more nimble where other companies stumbled. In 2003, for example, Koch Industries bought a group of money-losing fertilizer plants when no publicly traded company was willing to take the risk. Today, those plants are as profitable as a broken ATM machine that spews out cash around the clock. Unlike publicly traded companies, Koch Industries does not pay out rich dividends to investors. Charles Koch insists on reinvesting at least 90% of the company's profits, fueling its constant expansion. This strategy laid the foundation for decades of continuous growth. Koch Industries expanded continuously by purchasing other companies and branching out into new industries. It specialized in the kind of businesses that are indispensable to modern civilization, but which most consumers never directly encounter. The company is embedded in the hidden infrastructure of everyday life. Millions of people use Koch's products without ever seeing Koch's name attached. Koch refines and distributes fossil fuels, from gasoline to jet fuel, on which the global economy is dependent. Koch is the world's third largest producer of nitrogen fertilizer, which is the cornerstone of our modern food system. Koch makes the synthetic materials used in baby diapers, waistbands, and carpets. It makes the chemicals used for plastic bottles.
And we have not yet got our phones back up, but we're working on it. So you just hang with us. You know, it's like this wonderful era of technology has, over the last year or three, we've moved our entire studio from analog to digital. Things are no longer just plugged into each other. Everything's going through, you know, a router system. And so when you get a problem like we had this weekend where the entire power goes down to the entire system, things just get scrambled. It's very distressing, but you know, it's life in the big city. We'll get it fixed and we'll be back with you, or we'll be able to pick up your phone calls in a minute. But for right now, last week, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, Missouri has this proposed ban on abortion. And the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals came down on, this was on Wednesday, and said, this is not legal. This is not constitutional. You can't do this. It basically banned abortion before women knew that they were even pregnant. And so this ruling now is going to go to the Supreme Court, and going to the Supreme Court, it's going to get, I think, very strange. You could pick up camera one, Nate. Why don't you try that and just, you know. Yeah, well, if it goes out, we can pop off it. And so hi. So I think this is something that we need to be paying attention to. Is that and by that what I mean is that you've got basically two kinds of states in the United States. We have states that are run hierarchically and with hierarchy and patriarchy, which are the principal values of the so-called conservative movement. The abortion issue is a great example of it. It's not the only example of it. There are multiple examples of this. But really what the Republicans believe in is hierarchy and patriarchy. And taking away from women control over their own bodies. And this, frankly, this goes way beyond abortion. I mean, this also deals with things like making birth control available to women. There's a lot of conservatives who don't want birth control to be available to women. They certainly don't want the form of birth control that can jettison a fertilized egg that is still in the fallopian tubes. It has not yet implanted. In other words, it has not even started to become a zygote yet. Which you can do within a couple of days of having sex. You can take these pills. They definitely don't want those. They're claiming this is about religion. But this is coming down from a religion, from the Catholic religion, which is the most hierarchical and patriarchal of, arguably, of all the religions in the world. It has a man at its head. Only men are allowed to be priests. Only men are allowed to be citizens of the Vatican City, or at least that was the case about 20 years ago when I wrote about it in a book. I'm guessing it's still the case. Men control the whole show, period. And men decided in the 1800s, in the late 1800s, this is not Catholic doctrine that goes back way, way, way back, that women should not be able to get, safe, legal abortions, that it just should not be, abortion should not be available to women. And birth control should not be available to people. This is patriarchy on steroids. So the states that are not run by conservatives, that are willing, and that would be the democratically run states, the Democratic Party states, states that acknowledge the rights of women in the workplace, in the home, to their own bodies. Those states need to be preparing right now to protect abortion rights in their states, just as aggressively as the states that are outlawing abortion are creating the new bifurcation in America. Where right now we have some states, the red states, where you can't get Obamacare, if you're Medicare, if you're low income, if you're making between basically $3,000 and $15,000 a year, you make too little to qualify for Obamacare and for subsidies, and in these states, too much to qualify for Medicaid. Now, in the blue states, everybody, all low-income working people can get Medicaid, but in red states they can't. So we've already got that split. And what these guys want to do is now add another split to that, and make it so that in the red states, you can't get an abortion. The blue states, I think, need to be preparing for this. And what does this say about our country? What does this say about our future? Because these are really two different governing philosophies. You've got the governing philosophy of essentially, male-dominated, white male-dominated fascism that the Republican Party has fully embraced. And we're seeing this across every aspect of what they're doing. And then you've got the governing philosophy of democracy, of having America be a functioning democracy that Democrats have embraced. What do we do with this? We'll continue the conversation after this. We're hitting the top of the hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at hellofresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info is available at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. EasyFlow, personal air filtration system. Fresh air anywhere. More info at easyflowusa.com, code TOM. Masterclass with world-class instructors. More info at masterclass.com/Hartman. And Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com.
Here on Free Speech TV. Challenge Week means that throughout this week, if we hit the goal, if we hit our fundraising goal this week, then frontline funders Sandy and Stuart in Sunnyvale, California, are going to kick in an extra $5,000. So your donations are consequential, and they could unlock an additional $5,000. Your donation could be the one that helps unlock that $5,000. It's the last week of our fund drive. This is time for us to really catch up. We were quite behind the first week. We caught up a little bit in the second week, but we're still way behind. Not way behind, but we're still substantially behind. And therefore, Free Speech TV needs your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, or freespeech.org, of course, on the internet, and make your voice heard. Stand up for Free Speech TV. Be part of the only progressive television network in America. Just pretty amazing when you think about it, right? That we've got 3 conservative networks, plus the big corporate networks, and there's one fairly small progressive network, but we're like the little engine that could, right? We're getting up the hill, step by step by step. We're going to get there with your help. It's your help that makes it happen. It's your help that keeps Free Speech TV on the air. It's your help that enables us to get this program from here in Portland to you via all this electronic magical stuff where you can actually see a picture and see me. And it's really pretty amazing when you think about it, all the technology. But that technology is not free. In fact, it's not even, some of it is not even cheap. So it does cost money to run a television network, and Free Speech TV has made the decision to do that exclusively with input, with donations from their viewers, or nearly exclusive. I know that they get some grants, but You know, mostly it is contributions from the viewers, from you. And your help is needed, and it is needed now. So please call Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Become a part of history. We are in the process of waking this country up, turning things around. We got past the Trump era. There's still a whole lot of fascists embedded in our government and in our structures and certainly in our media. We will prevail. Because what we're talking about is what's true and right and honest and fair. And ultimately, I truly believe that is what prevails. It's what I support. It's why I show up every day to do this program. And believe me, there are days when I would just as soon stay in bed. But this is important work that Louise and I and Joyce and Nate and Sean and Sue and Nigel and you know, all the people who work on this program, Jamie, Patrick, Gerald, I mean, there's a whole, Chase, there's a whole bunch of people who help make this program work, and all of us are doing it more as an avocation than a vocation. We are doing it because we believe in the possibility of a functional, egalitarian, multiracial society in this country that is where people can care for each other, where we are all our brothers and sisters keepers. And it won't continue without your help. And with your help, it can not only continue, but it can grow and strengthen. This is important stuff. It's an important time. It's a critical juncture in our nation's history. So let's really knock this one out of the park. Particularly, you know, I know coming up next year, it's going to be silly season politics again, and everybody's going to be getting fundraising pitches. I've gotten 3 of them from Donald Trump this week, but he's the only politician so far I've gotten a fundraising pitch from. But it's going to be difficult next year for Free Speech TV. So let's get a solid foundation here, not only with that $5,000 match that, you know, match week, but also if you can please consider making a regular monthly contribution, $5, $10, $15, whatever works for you. There are, of course, premiums with a $20 gift. There's the Thom Hartmann University sticker or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker with a $50 gift. There's the tote bag. Real change comes from the grassroots. With a $75 gift, the Thom Hartmann mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of 2 Free Speech TV face masks or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. $240 gift, your choice of the 2-book set, my book on oligarchy and my book on monopolies, or both autographed, or the virtual meet and greet where we get together on Zoom. With the $360 gift, it's the summer box set with the bumper sticker, the university bumper sticker, the free speech bumper sticker, the Take Action Pride sticker, the Real Change tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann Program mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us. But the real bottom line is this entire week, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, another $5,000 gets unlocked. But most importantly, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, we get to continue this program and this network for another 3 months or so. Because that's really what it has come down to. So please call now, 877-378-8669.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the second hour of our program. On the line with us is Pam Garrison, a spokesperson for the West Virginia chapter of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. The website, poorpeoplescampaign.org, and the Twitter handle, Unite the Poor. Pam, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So tell us about how y'all are dealing with there in West Virginia, how you're dealing with Senator Manchin's, shall we say, intransigence?
Well, that's the reason we've invited Reverend Barbara, Reverend Liz, the Poor People's Campaign, and the country to join us in standing up to the lies, the propaganda, the spin that has been put on the people. West Virginians are not happy. We're not content to live in poverty without we are one of the poorest states there is. Most of our jobs are minimum wage jobs. And so tourism is one of our main industries. And they won't give us a living wage. We are living in poverty. We hear the spin that this with the elections. We watched what happened January the 6th in horror like every other American did. And we've heard that we had one of the most secure, safest elections there ever was by the Department of Justice, the Homeland Security, every Secretary of State. And then as soon as it's over, we see elected officials start trying to dismantle democracy, suppress our votes, take away our rights. And the people are not going to stand for it. And we have heard the lies that about the filibuster. The filibuster is used to suppress the will of the people. It is not constitutional. It is unconstitutional. We've heard the spin about bipartisanship. There's some things, yes, bipartisanship they can work on, but there's some things you have to have principles that you have to stand up and defend. And that's what we want Senator Manchin to do, stand up and defend our democracy. Here in West Virginia, we have fought our legislatures, and we are 95% white. So this isn't a white issue, a black issue. This is a voter suppression issue. This is a red, white, and blue issue. They have in West Virginia, they've tried to make it illegal for us to protest. So the Milan strikers and the UMW and stuff wouldn't have the right to even have their voices heard. They are trying to silence the people, and this is a strategy. This isn't about This isn't about party and race. This is a strategy to keep us poor and suppressed.
Yeah, I totally get that, Pam. Pam, in West Virginia, as you pointed out, West Virginia is 95% white. In most of the states that are aggressively passing these laws, or the ones that did it most quickly, are states that have substantial black populations and Hispanic populations. Florida, Texas, et cetera, and the idea, I think, from the Republicans' point of view was that minorities are more likely to vote for Democrats, and so we're going to pass laws that's going to make it harder for minorities to vote. In West Virginia, you don't have that dynamic doesn't play out as large as it does in, for example, Georgia. How does that change the political calculus there? Because essentially, I suppose in West Virginia you could say that the Republicans have substituted poor people for black people in other states, but it's and what does that mean to Joe Manchin? I mean that civil rights leaders come and try to talk to him, and his response is basically, tough luck. And he doesn't have a large black electorate in West Virginia that he has to worry about backlash from.
That goes to show you that this isn't about race. This is a strategy. This is a strategy to keep the elites and the corporations in power and making our policies and making our decisions. And that is who we are watching pull the strings in Washington. It's not the people that we send that are supposed to be standing up for the common good of the people and for democracy and what right. It is trying to get political gains with their lobbyists and their corporate donors. They try to treat us like we're stupid, but we're not as stupid as they think that we are, and we do realize what's going on.
So, in other words, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So, what you're saying is that this was really never a strategy about race. What the Republicans have been doing is, trying to get and hang on to power in whatever way they have to do it, and if that means suppressing people's right to vote based on their race, they'll do that. If it means suppressing people's right to vote based on poverty, they'll do that. If it means suppressing people's right to vote based on geography, they'll do that. That's essentially what you're saying, Pam Garrison?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Like I said, this is a strategy that's being pulled on the people. This isn't about this divide and conquer strategy. We've seen this and heard this for years. This same old spin we've seen and heard for years. Well, the people have woke up. You know, the old spin, the old cliches, they don't work on us anymore.
Yeah.
This divide and conquer they keep trying to pull on us. We're not going to put up with it. We are not going to do it.
I get it.
We are joining together. Every party.
Pam, you're absolutely right. And this is a strategy that didn't start last month. It's not a strategy that Donald Trump invented. Back in 1980, the guy who was the co-founder of the Heritage Foundation, the organization that funnels millions of dollars to right-wing talk show hosts as subsidies, the organization that has authored a lot of very bizarre legislation, runs all these think tanks and everything else, and was named Paul Weyrich. He was working on the Reagan campaign in 1980, and in a church basement in Dallas, he gave a little bit, this is just a little clip of a speech that he gave to a group of Republican Christian activists, and this is when they kicked off the Republican campaign against voters.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome, good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
I mean, that was 1980, 41 years ago. The Republicans have been running this scam in various forms. So how is it playing out specifically in West Virginia, and what can be done about it?
Since 1980, that is when Reagan went in and started busting up all the unions, the airline unions. That's when he busted the UMW. We heard acid rain. Every one of our coal mines is closed, and we've been hearing the propaganda from him ever since. Oh, we're going to bring you coal mines back. No, they're not. It's a dinosaur industry that they propagate West Virginians with, that we're going to bring you coal back. No, they're not. That is a dinosaur industry. Reagan and that's what I'm saying. We have had this same propaganda put on us, and this false narrative that that the Christians are for this hate and therefore, you know, separating people and demagoguing people and everything. That's not reality. That is their spin and their propaganda. I'm here, my family, I've got Republican families, I've got liberal families, I've got, you know, we're neighbors, we're not out here fighting each other and all that. We are all together if you talk to any one of them about their kids dying from the opioid addictions, from them going hungry and not being able to pay their bills, from them not being able to find a job, our infrastructure falling down and everything. Americans are united. We are united.
Yeah.
We have a slim majority of the wealthiest people that has all the money, that is keeping our economy stagnant, that is the ruling class. Instead of the people, it is the elites, and the people are here to take it back. This is our country. This is our democracy, and we are not going to be silent anymore.
I get it, Pam. And what can people do to support the Poor People's Campaign there in West Virginia and nationally? I know there's poorpeoplescampaign.org. Go there as a starting point?
Go there as a starting point. Join us. We're sending letters to every representatives, to Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, because this is not a red and blue issue. It's a red, white, and blue issue. They all should be held accountable for their words and their actions, what they do and what they don't do to the people. We need truth. These lies and spin, we've had enough of this. We want integrity. We want accountability. We want the truth.
Yeah.
We can handle the truth. We're big people. We can handle it. And you know what? We're tired of hearing there's no solutions to none of the problems, because we know there is.
Yeah.
We know if there was the will behind it, our country we wouldn't be watching the authoritarian countries with their big modern infrastructure in every country leaving us behind. We were the leaders of the free world, and we have fallen to where we're begging. You know, that's not America. We're the bright light on the shining hill. What happened to that? We are not isolationists. We are leaders.
Pam, we just have 30 seconds. How does this play out with Joe Manchin now?
Hopefully, Joe will listen to the people and quit listening to the dark money or whoever he's listening to. We did not send him there to appease Mitch McConnell. We had 13 years of Mitch McConnell telling us, send your bills to the Grim Reaper so I can let them die in my graveyard. We are done with that. We put them in there to get something done. We want resolutions. We want to move forward.
Amen. Pam Garrison, the spokesperson for the West Virginia chapter of the Poor People's Campaign, poorpeoplescampaign.org, and we are all applauding you here, Pam. Pam, thank you so much for the call.
Join me.
Yeah.
Join me.
Amen. Okay. I love it. You're spectacular. Pam, thank you so much for dropping by today and talking with us. And please give our best to Reverend Barbara. Thank you.
I sure will.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It's 18 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
18 minutes past the hour. Our phones are working now. Back with your calls right after this. Stick around. And welcome back. Tyrone in Harlem, New York. Hey, Tyrone. We finally got everything working here. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's on your mind?
You're back live, huh?
We are. More or less, yes. We're still struggling over on Free Speech TV, trying to get that router working. But anyway, step by step. We're live on YouTube, which is what you're watching. So what's on your mind?
That's good. The system is not set up. The guardrails that they put up was not set up to push back against wealthy people.
Which particular guardrails are you talking about, Tyrone?
The ones that keep rich people rich and poor people poor.
Uh-huh.
Our legal system, our financial system, our system that was set up supposedly for all of us.
Oh, the whole shooting match, in other words.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and because it's not set up to push back to someone that came into office that wreaked havoc. And we knew that it was coming. You know, so we were told about this back in the beginning of this country. So we're going to have somebody that's coming that don't have no guard, no respect for the laws and the Constitution, and they're going to run roughshod. The question is, what were we going to do? How are we going to respond to this assault on our republic, on our democracy, however you want to say it? But because we got people that are acting in concert with this illegal action that has been taken upon this country, we have a serious issue that we got to contend with, because if we don't come together, meaning the forward-thinking people, because you have people that want to keep this country the way it was. You know, when they say they want to make America great again, that means you want to take the country back to when it was.
Well, let's make it what it can be. I mean, let's move it forward in a positive direction.
Move it forward.
Yeah.
And this is the way I see it. I see it the backward-thinking people against the forward-thinking people, and there are a lot of people, they don't want change. They don't like change. They don't want this country to move forward.
Well, that's because it's working out really well for rich white people. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos, for example, with his giant rocket penis thing that's going up in the sky, and his Amazon logo that looks, you know, every time we see it on TV, Louise is, well, both of us is like, oh, there's the Amazon penis. You know, he took a $10 billion bailout for his rocket company. And then he turns around and auctions off who wants to go with me and my brother into outer space for $28 million after he took $10 billion from us. I mean, what's this about?
Well, it's because you have so much money you don't even know what to do with it.
I know.
These people have so much money, and when you get that wealthy, and this is where we have a problem with our country in general, you have that much money that people can't, he can go out like and shoot somebody in the head, and he won't go to jail for it. He could be accused of rape. He won't go to jail for it. Why? Because the system's not prepared to deal with somebody with that much money. And that's where we have a serious problem.
Yeah, the system has become severely corrupted. I'm with you, Tyrone.
Absolutely.
And it's not healthy. It's not healthy for America. It's not healthy for our republic, our democracy, as you said. And we got to do something about it. And I think that starts with tax policy, frankly, which most people think is wonky and boring, but gee, it's pretty important stuff. Tyrone, thanks for the call. Always nice to hear from you.
Thank you.
Good talking with you. 22 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. Our 1 hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3 hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. In addition to the free newsletter that we have over at thomhartmann.com, which gives you literally a link to every story or article I've talked about throughout the day, every day, comes into your email box every day. There's no charge. In addition to that, and my daily rants, which are free of advertising and free of charge over at hartmannreport.com, we also produce a weekly video. This week's video is about how power companies around the country, for-profit power companies 100% of the time, these power companies around the country are making it harder and harder and more expensive for people to install solar in their homes. All kinds of ways of trying to block people from doing this. And increasingly, they're getting support from Republican politicians, both at the local and the state level. It's something that we really need to know about, we need to be paying attention to, and we need to be aggressively pushing back on. You can check it out over at thomhartmann.com and at hartmannreport.com. And welcome back. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Tom, I have to tell you, after hearing your guest there, I just have to say this. Between Joe Manchin and Merrick Garland, they are killing the enthusiasm, the heart, and morale of the Democratic base. And it's happening really fast. And I got to tell you, I'm hearing now, just in the last few weeks, actually the last 10 days, I would cite as one of the most reliable canaries in the coal mine, sorry to use the West Virginia analogy or metaphor there, but it would be my 92-year-old mother, who after hearing Merrick Garland speak over the weekend said, oh, no, he's got to go. He's got to go.
Yeah.
Because, Tom, let me tell you something. The Democratic base is behind Joe Biden, and they love the policies, and we're policy-focused. But we want our pound of flesh. Let's just acknowledge that. We want our damn pound
Well,
of
Garland
flesh.
just came out and announced that he's going to pursue an investigation inside the Department of Justice. It's going to go wherever it goes, and he's not going to hesitate to take swift action. I think if they don't clean this thing up in the next few days, frankly, and it shouldn't take that long to get some of these Trump appointees out of there and clean this thing up, I think I think you're right, Paul. I think it's going to be not just a moral crisis or a democracy crisis, but it's also going to become a political crisis for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, because I told Mom, I said, Mom, he's there for a year. Unless there's something wrong with him, unless he does something scandalous. She goes, a year? I said, yeah, a year. And then he wants to resign. But here's the problem. Merrick Garland, Tom, is a brilliant jurist. I mean, he's no Benjamin Cardozo, but he's a brilliant jurist. But he's acting like a circuit court judge in the AG's office.
Right. And you need a prosecutor.
He's not a prosecutor. He's not aggressive. He's trying to be too even-handed. he reminds me of, what Robert Frost said, a liberal is a man who's so even-minded that he can't take his own side in an argument. That's what Merrick Garland sounds like. He's milquetoast and tofu. I'm sorry, he's not satisfying. We want our pound of flesh.
Yeah, amen. Amen. Bring it on. Paul, thanks. Great rant to open the week. I appreciate it. It's coming up on 27 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls at 202-808-9925 on the other side of this break. Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls and the news of the day right after this. Well, it's Challenge Week here on Free Speech TV. Challenge Week means that throughout this week, if we hit the goal, if we hit our fundraising goal this week, then frontline funders Sandy and Stuart in Sunnyvale, California, are going to kick in an extra $5,000. So your donations are consequential, and they could unlock an additional $5,000. Your donation could be the one that helps unlock that $5,000. It's the last week of our fund drive. This is time for us to really catch up. We were quite behind the first week. We caught up a little bit in the second week, but we're still way behind. Not way behind, but we're still substantially behind. And therefore, Free Speech TV needs your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, or freespeech.org, of course, on the internet, and make your voice heard. Stand up for Free Speech TV. Be part of the only progressive television network in America. Just pretty amazing when you think about it, right? That we've got 3 conservative networks, plus the big corporate networks, and there's one fairly small progressive network, but we're like the little engine that could, right? We're getting up the hill, step by step by step. We're going to get there with your help. It's your help that makes it happen. It's your help that keeps Free Speech TV on the air. It's your help that enables us to get this program from here in Portland to you via all this electronic magical stuff where you can actually see a picture and see me. And it's really pretty amazing when you think about it, all the technology. But that technology is not free. In fact, it's not even, some of it is not even cheap. So it does cost money to run a television network, and Free Speech TV has made the decision to do that exclusively with input, with donations from their viewers, or nearly exclusive. I know that they get some grants, but mostly it is contributions from the viewers, from you. And your help is needed, and it is needed now. So please call Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Become a part of history. We are in the process of waking this country up, turning things around. We got past the Trump era. There's still a whole lot of fascists embedded in our government and in our structures and certainly in our media. We will prevail, because what we're talking about is what's true and right and honest and fair. And ultimately, I truly believe that is what prevails. It's what I support. It's why I show up every day to do this program. And believe me, there are days when I would just as soon stay in bed. But this is important work that Louise and I and Joyce and Nate and Sean and Sue and Nigel and all the people who work on this program, Jamie, Patrick, Gerald. I mean, there's a whole Chase. There's a whole bunch of people who help make this program work, and all of us are doing it more as an avocation than a vocation. We are doing it because we believe in the possibility of a functional, egalitarian, multiracial society in this country that is where people can care for each other, where we are all our brothers and sisters keepers. And it won't continue without your help. And with your help, it can not only continue, but it can grow and strengthen. This is important stuff. It's an important time. It's a critical juncture in our nation's history. So let's really knock this one out of the park. Particularly, you know, I know coming up next year, it's going to be silly season politics again, and everybody's going to be getting fundraising pitches. I've gotten 3 of them from Donald Trump this week, but he's the only politician so far I've gotten a fundraising pitch from. But it's going to be difficult next year for Free Speech TV. So let's get a solid foundation here, not only with that $5,000 match that, you know, match week, but also if you can please consider making a regular monthly contribution, $5, $10, $15, whatever works for you. There are, of course, premiums with a $20 gift. There's the Thom Hartmann University sticker or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker with a $50 gift. There's the tote bag. Real change comes from the grassroots. With a $75 gift, the Thom Hartmann mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of 2 Free Speech TV face masks or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. $240 gift. Your choice of the 2-book set, my book on oligarchy and my book on monopolies, or both autographed, or the virtual meet and greet where we get together on Zoom. With the $360 gift, it's the summer box set with the bumper sticker, the university bumper sticker, the Free Speech bumper sticker, the Take Action Pride sticker, the Real Change tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann Program mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us. But the real bottom line is this entire week, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, another $5,000 gets unlocked. But most importantly, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, we get to continue this program and this network for another 3 months or so. Because that's really what it has come down to. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. We're trying to provide the very best content that we can for you at Hartmann Report and over at ThomHartmann.com. And on Hartmann Report, every day, 6 days a week, I write an op-ed. Very often they're my rants, also for the radio and television program. And it's ad-free, commercial-free. It's free. You can sign up. It'll get pushed into your email box. Check it out at HartmannReport.com. And, of course, over at ThomHartmann.com, we have our weekly video that we put up every week that, you know, does a deeper dive for people who are members of our program, of ThomHartmann.com. And the one this week is about this Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, SIGAR, their new report that almost 20 million Afghans are on the verge of starvation and nobody's talking about it. Check it out at ThomHartmann.com. And welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. 202-808-9925 is our telephone number. And let's see here, John in Chicago. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
How are you, Tom? You had some really good people on there the last 2 or 3. But I called because I was looking on Arizona's website, and Maricopa County, curiously, is the only county in Arizona that is using Dominion machines. Every county is ES&S or EA&S. Every county.
Right.
And that's the company, at least I suspect, of being less than honest.
Yeah, there is, you know, there are a lot of echoes from previous elections about ES&S, but who knows? My guess is that given all the hysteria around elections and voting and voting machines and everything else, that if there was a problem with any company's machines in the past, the 2022 election is probably going to be pretty squeaky clean. But yeah, there's a lot of people scratching their head about, you know, for example, how did Mitch McConnell pull that thing off in Kentucky, when he was so far behind in the polls, and all of a sudden, hey, it just kind of flipped.
Those are
Yeah, those
I'm
were,
just curious.
but you know, whether it's the company or not, I don't know, and frankly, I'm not interested in being on a receiving end of a lawsuit from the company. I do think that, but you know, that said, I will say, and I've said this all along, I think that privatizing our elections, handing the process of elections, what Thomas Paine referred to as the beating heart of democracy, handing that off to private for-profit corporations to tell us how our elections went is the biggest crime against democracy that has been among the biggest crimes against democracy that has happened in my lifetime. And you know, it really started with the Bush administration, you know, with the Help America Vote Act in 2002.
But it's my opinion, again, that Dominion's one of the few that I know so far are pretty squeaky clean.
Oh yeah. They and which is why they're suing for billions, and they're willing to undergo discovery, and they're willing to put themselves on the line. Whether ES&S is or not, I don't know. You know, it's, you know, time will tell. But the Republicans have decided that they love ES&S and they hate Dominion, and that should be a flag of some kind. And ES&S should be, I would think, probably responding to that as well. Because there's something kind of skeezy going on here.
May I make another quick point on something you've been talking about that
Certainly.
I tried to get through and didn't? March 17th of last year, I believe that's the date when they passed the first series of monies to help the economy and the people during COVID. Up till then, as you noted, Trump was all over this. It's going to kill us. We got to do something. The Republicans, the same thing. We have to do something. So they give us a trickle, we the people, and $6 to $5 to $7 trillion go to the banking and corporate system to save them from bankruptcy, as Richard Wolff talked about, which was coming in March. All the money they've been borrowing since 2008 was coming due 10 years, 12 years later. And Richard Wolff talked about how that was their bailout. Not even 3 days later, as you point out, now it's not a problem. I don't think it was racist at all, as many people were saying. I think it was simply we got the money to the right people, that $7 trillion that we can give them to save their going bankrupt and the bubble not collapse. And then, you know, away we go. Now there's no problem. I don't think it was racism. It was simply business as usual. We got what we wanted. We've saved them. Now we can go back to playing games.
Yeah, good old-fashioned generic greed.
Yeah.
and you know, and racism kind of rides on the back of that because, hey, you know, stealing from people who you can easily identify is a lot easier than stealing from people that you know might not, or stealing from people that the society has traditionally held powerless, or who are more reluctant to turn to power figures like the police, you know, or prosecutors to try to get redress. You know, they're more vulnerable as victims. All good points.
I'm 80 years old and grew up in an Italian-American neighborhood, and the idea of calling the police, they would put you in the insane asylum.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. John, thanks for the call. It's good to hear from you, and thanks for listening to WCPT. Eric in Oakland, California. Hey, Eric, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hey, Tom. Yeah, remember about a week ago or so, the judge came out with that order against the California gun law?
Yeah.
Who equated the AR-15 with the Swiss Army knife?
Yeah.
So I think California should come up with a new law that confiscates the AR-15s and similar weapons and replaces them, take the guns from the people and give them a Swiss Army knife.
Oh, that's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, that judge shouldn't rule against that.
Right, yeah. And
Anyway.
to give them Swiss Army knives. Well, you know, you can't carry a Swiss Army knife on an airplane. I mean, it's
Right.
Oh, geez. Yeah, it's an idea, Eric. That's an idea. Hey, thank you very much for the call. I like that. Lawrence in St. Paul, Minnesota. Hey, Lawrence, what's on your mind today?
I don't know is why Mitch McConnell is still the leader of the Senate.
Well,
So
he's
that's-
not.
that's
He's the
one
leader of the
thing.
Republicans in the Senate. The leader, the guy with the most power in the Senate who sets the agenda is Chuck Schumer.
Tom, that was sarcasm.
Oh, I'm
Because
sorry.
you wouldn't-
Thank you, Lawrence.
you would not know that he wasn't the leader. See, my point is,
I'm with you.
You would not know he wasn't the leader of the Senate.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you a few things. Okay, this guy got the last call, AR-15s, and AR-15, voter suppression, illegal audits, Trump not being held accountable. All of this. Do we have any blue states that can do something equally, to combat this? And this is what's going to happen if nobody is held accountable for what Trump did in office, almost destroyed America. If nobody's held accountable, then the Democrat Party is in trouble, because I'm definitely not going to vote for a party that's not going to support my needs. So it's got.
Lawrence, there's no such thing as a Democrat Party. That's language that people who listen to right-wing talk radio and Republicans use. Goes back to Joe McCarthy saying, "Don't ever call it the Democratic Party. That sounds too nice. Call it the Democrat Party with the emphasis on the rat." So, Lawrence, and let's again remember that the number one message that the Russian trolls are promoting, and now we discover a Republican front group pretending to be a Green Party group. This just came out over the weekend. Was running massive numbers of ads in both the 2016, 2018, and 2020 elections on Facebook. Facebook let them get away with it. Republicans pretending to be Greens, and their main message was, if the Democrats don't do what I want, I'm going to vote Green. I'm not going to vote Democratic. And, it's a message that really helps the Republicans, Lawrence. I don't know if you're one of them, and that's why you're trying to spread it, but it really damages our democracy to say.
I've called your show several times.
Well, that's why I'm giving you all kinds of time here, because I think that you're just being naive, frankly, or you've been listening to their propaganda. We have one political party right now in the United States that is completely committed to overthrowing America and establishing a fascist dictatorship, and you've got another political party here that is trying to hang on to democracy, and in some ways trying to do some good stuff, in some ways trying to maintain, kind of a corrupt status quo, but still, they're committed to democracy. This should not be a difficult choice, Lawrence. And if you don't like the local, your Democratic Party there in Minnesota, if you don't think that they're doing a great job or doing it the way that you want, join the damn party. Show up at their meetings. Most of them are virtual nowadays, but participate. Mold the party in the image that you would like, rather than sitting around going, well, I'm not going to vote for them. Come on, Lawrence. Give me a break.
Yeah. I get your point. No, I'm definitely not sitting there on my laurels. Actually, this last election, like I told you before, I rented several vans to make sure I got people that couldn't get to the polls, and they stopped me from doing that. So I was active in the party. That's the first thing I'm doing. But, the question you got to ask yourself, am I the one that's like you described, or are you guys the one which you think that you're just going to let the Democrats not do anything and they're not going to be held responsible? If the Democrats don't do what they ran on, yes, you have the right to say, look, you guys didn't do what you promised.
That's what will happen, Lawrence. And I completely agree with you. That's what will happen. What will happen is if Chuck Schumer is too weak, if Joe Biden doesn't push hard enough, well, Nancy Pelosi seems to be doing a good job in the House, but if in the Senate and the White House they are not willing to stand up to the Republicans, and now Mitch McConnell has issued another one. He says, if one of the Democratic nominees on the Supreme Court were to die or to resign, he would block any Democratic appointment until there's a Republican president, if he becomes the Senate Majority Leader in the elections next year. And so here he is saying, we're going to do the same old, it's the old rope-a-dope. And I agree with you. If Democrats can't get their act together and make something happen, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a terrible election, and you can kiss our democracy goodbye, and that's how high the stakes are. But that doesn't mean that you encourage Democrats to behave that way. Lawrence, I got to run. Thank you for the call. It's 46 minutes past the hour. We'll pick up more of your calls in the news on the other side of the break. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls on the other side of this break. 202-808-9925. And welcome back. John in Denver. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. I just wanted to make a few comments on the audit/fraudit in Arizona.
Yeah, the fraudit. I'm with you. What's up?
I am a cybersecurity analyst and am very familiar with the requirements of cyber forensic investigations. And I'm very surprised. The one topic you hear occasionally touched on is about one concept which is very important to investigations of all types, is chain of custody.
Mm-hmm.
So every now and again you hear about this chain of custody, and I'll tell you why the chain of custody has been compromised. First off, the cybersecurity world exists on industry frameworks that are derived from Department of Defense principles when it comes to computer forensic investigations. And the chain of custody has been compromised. Therefore, whatever result this investigation comes up with, it is invalid because the chain of custody has been compromised. And the number one reason that the chain of custody has been compromised is that the collection of computer evidence begins with collecting the live volatile memory components of a computer system while it's plugged in.
Right.
The random access memory, the swap file, the CPU registers all contain information. So if anybody is going to hack anything, you would want to first start with collection of evidence and document that, and that hasn't been done because they obviously didn't have access to machines before they were powered up. So the principles, the two basic principles of cyber investigations, documenting the collection of evidence and doing it properly, and also following a proper framework for chain of custody has not been followed. And I'm really surprised how most of the media, and some of the media do seem to have some fairly cyber-savvy reporters, but nobody is reporting on this, which would make the entire thing moot and the whole franchise moot right now. And that's my comments.
Shouldn't the election software itself have basically a log function built into it where it creates a real simple text file that notes every single every single thing that machine does, so that you can
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
You're on the right track.
Do any of these ES&S, Dominion, do any of these systems actually produce a log of all activity on the computer?
It does. And if any activity that wants to make a change or an attempted change, whether the change was successful or the change failed, is logged and documented. And we've already done several professional audits that have shown that nothing has happened to that information. But you are 100% correct. It is not the software itself. However, the software itself, when it's developed in the software development life cycle, the software itself has a signature. We call them hashes, which are encrypted signatures, so that when you download a patch from somebody to install on your computer, you compare the hash, that digital signature, to the one on their website. You know you got the code that you're supposed to do. So any change in code by a reputable software person is signed with a hash. And anybody tries to inject any code maliciously in there, those hashes won't match, and there will be fraud. Immediately, it will be able to be seen before the election was even tabulated.
Yeah, I get it. John, thank you. I think the simple solution is, if you're going to use machines, use open source software and have the machines be owned by the government. But anyhow, we'll be right back. Stick around.
Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Hey, we have a couple of special things over at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com. Of course, at HartmannReport.com, every single day, well, 6 days a week, Sunday accepted, I write a rant about an issue of the day that I think is important. Louise and I work on these together. We get them out typically around 6 in the morning Pacific time. And you'll find that at HartmannReport.com. It's free. You can sign up for it. There's no ads, whatever. But also over at ThomHartmann.com, we have a video every week for the supporters of our program. And the one this week is about how Wisconsin is trying to remove, in fact, they just got permission from their Supreme Court to remove 188,000 people from the voting rolls because they haven't voted in 4 years. This highlights the importance of getting to know who is your state representative, who is your state senator, and communicating with them regularly. It's all over at HartmannReport.com and ThomHartmann.com. And welcome back. James in Salida, Colorado. Hey, James, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I have a bone to pick with you.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, you keep talking about the Supreme Court and Chief Justice Roberts. Shouldn't you really be calling it the fake Supreme Court and fake Chief Justice Roberts?
Because
Al Gore should have picked out the justice when Chief Justice Roberts came into power or came into the court.
Yeah, among others, yes. And there's, I wrote a book about this, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. And there's a chapter in the book that goes through how Reagan stole the election, how Bush stole the election, and how Trump stole the election. And each one of those guys got to put people on the Supreme Court. All three of them committed treason to steal their elections. I think it's just, I agree, it's illegitimate. That said, if you start calling it that beyond, kind of an academic principle, you get marginalized and all this kind of stuff. But this is why I think it's so important that we expand the Supreme Court if we have the power to do it. Congress has the power to do this, but the question is, as long as you've got Manchin and Sinema and probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 other Democrats taking big money from the Koch network and some of these other right-wing billionaire networks, I think it's extremely unlikely that you're going to see that kind of change. We need a larger majority, and we need to get more progressives in the United States Senate.
I couldn't agree with you more. That absolutely has to happen, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, and then expand the court to 16, 18, 15, whatever it may be. It should be an odd
whatever
number.
it takes.
Yeah, and so that we can at least have a functioning Supreme Court again. I'm with you. Thank you for the call. Joseph in Los Angeles. Hey, Joseph, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Good.
Good. So I listen to you all the time. I agree with you and everybody that's called and stuff. I think progressives, I think we are causing alarms, rightfully so. I think institutionally speaking, if you really look at what Garland's doing, I feel like he's being quite balanced. He's got Roger Stone's bodyguards. He's got the right people. I think he's moving in the right direction. Biden has the right people around him. I see, he's hanging out with the John Meachams of the world and stuff like that. I feel like they're taking the Stephen Levitsky approach, which is to not play too much hardball in the effort to not erode democracy more. I'm not sure how you feel about that. I'm a little bit more optimistic in the long run, but I think things will seemingly get worse as it unfolds and the fascist party really crystallizes. How do you feel?
My concern, Joseph, is that we hit a tipping point where there is no more democracy, and at that point, it doesn't matter. It will take essentially a revolution to bring democracy back. And,
right.
We just saw something like that happen in Israel, where after 12 years of having an autocrat and a arguably less than democratic system as a consequence, a highly corrupt
at least according to the prosecutors who are going after him, autocrat in Netanyahu. You know, now, and in fact, Naftali said, you know, this corrupt government is now history. You know, it's gone. So you know, it is possible for democracies to recover, but it doesn't generally happen. I mean, look at what happened in Hungary. Hungary, you know, it took Viktor Orban about 8 years to turn Hungary from a functioning member of the European Union and you know, and a democracy into a right-wing dictatorship. I mean, you know, Hungary is being run now like Russia or Belarus. And
I think that's why we're rightfully freaking out, because we only essentially have 2 years to do that or less.
I agree. I agree. And the Republicans are doing everything they can.
We're going to have to go to the streets and protest.
Yeah, well, we've got to do a lot more than that, and we've got to get involved in the political process. But the Republicans are doing everything they can to rig that election. It's amazing. We'll be back. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at hellofresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info is available at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. EasyFlow, personal air filtration system. Fresh air anywhere. More info at easyflowusa.com, code TOM. Masterclass with world-class instructors. More info at masterclass.com/Hartman. And Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com.
Here on Free Speech TV. Challenge Week means that throughout this week, if we hit the goal, if we hit our fundraising goal this week, then frontline funders Sandy and Stuart in Sunnyvale, California, are going to kick in an extra $5,000. So your donations are consequential, and they could unlock an additional $5,000. Your donation could be the one that helps unlock that $5,000. It's the last week of our fund drive. This is time for us to really catch up. We were quite behind the first week. We caught up a little bit in the second week, but we're still way behind. Not way behind, but we're still substantially behind. And therefore, Free Speech TV needs your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, or freespeech.org, of course, on the internet, and make your voice heard. Stand up for Free Speech TV. Be part of the only progressive television network in America. Just pretty amazing when you think about it, right? That we've got 3 conservative networks, plus the big corporate networks, and there's one fairly small progressive network, but we're like the little engine that could, right? We're getting up the hill, step by step by step. We're going to get there with your help. It's your help that makes it happen. It's your help that keeps Free Speech TV on the air. It's your help that enables us to get this program from here in Portland to you via all this electronic magical stuff where you can actually see a picture and see me, and it's really pretty amazing when you think about it, you know, all the technology. But that technology is not free. In fact, it's not even, some of it is not even cheap. So it does cost money to run a television network, and Free Speech TV has made the decision to do that exclusively with input, with donations from their viewers, or nearly exclusive. I know that they get some grants, but you know, mostly it is contributions from the viewers, from you. And your help is needed, and it is needed now. So please call Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Become a part of history. We are in the process of waking this country up, turning things around. We got past the Trump era. There's still a whole lot of fascists embedded in our government and in our structures and certainly in our media. We will prevail, because what we're talking about is what's true and right and honest and fair. And ultimately, I truly believe that is what prevails. It's what I support. It's why I show up every day to do this program. And believe me, there are days when I would just as soon stay in bed. But this is important work that Louise and I and Joyce and Nate and Sean and Sue and Nigel and you know, all the people who work on this program, Jamie, Patrick, Gerald, I mean, there's a whole Chase. There's a whole bunch of people who help make this program work, and all of us are doing it more as an avocation than a vocation. We are doing it because we believe in the possibility of a functional, egalitarian, multiracial society in this country that is where people can care for each other, where we are all our brothers and sisters keepers. And it won't continue without your help. And with your help, it can not only continue, but it can grow and strengthen. This is important stuff. It's an important time. It's a critical juncture in our nation's history. So let's really knock this one out of the park. Particularly, you know, I know coming up next year, it's going to be silly season politics again, and everybody's going to be getting fundraising pitches. I've gotten 3 of them from Donald Trump this week, but he's the only politician so far I've gotten a fundraising pitch from. But it's going to be difficult next year for Free Speech TV. So let's get a solid foundation here, not only with that $5,000 match that, you know, match week, but also if you can please consider making a regular monthly contribution, $5, $10, $15, whatever works for you. There are, of course, premiums with a $20 gift. There's the Thom Hartmann University sticker, or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker with a $50 gift. There's the tote bag, Real Change Comes from the Grassroots, with a $75 gift, the Thom Hartmann mug with a $100 gift. You have your choice of 2 Free Speech TV face masks or the Wilmington on Fire DVD, $240 gift. Your choice of the 2-book set, my book on oligarchy and my book on monopolies, or both autographed, or the virtual meet and greet where we get together on Zoom. With the $360 gift, it's the summer box set with the bumper sticker, the university bumper sticker, the Free Speech bumper sticker, the Take Action Pride sticker, the Real Change tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann Program mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us. But the real bottom line is this entire week, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, another $5,000 gets unlocked. But most importantly, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, we get to continue this program and this network for another 3 months or so. Because that's really what it has come down to. So please call now, 877-378-8669.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us is Dr. Christopher Ryan, PhD, author of 5 books, including his latest, Civilized to Death, The Price of Progress. His website, Ryan, CHRISRYAN, PhD.com. And his Twitter handle is @ChrisRyan. Oh, yeah, @ChrisRyan. Hey, Chris, welcome to the program, and congratulations on this book, Civilized to Death. I've bought at least a dozen copies so far. I think you did a great job of going down a path that I started down back in 1996 in my book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. About a third of the book is devoted to ancient civilizations or pre-civilizations and hunting, gathering, and all this kind of stuff. And you have taken it so much farther and done so much on it. It's just brilliant, and I wanted to thank you for that and get you on. So let's dig into it. You've got some great points, and I love your Civilized to Death cocktail party cheat sheet. So let me just run through some of this stuff. Thomas Hobbes told us famously when he published Leviathan back in 1634, as I recall, that prior to the civilization, before humans had to deal with the iron fist of church or state, that the natural state of mankind, of humankind, was terrible, that there was, no arts, no letters, no communication, no transportation. Life was nasty, short, and brutish. What say you?
I say that Hobbes was wrong on every point. And, we don't necessarily need to blame him because he didn't have any archaeological or anthropological data to work with. So he was just sort of pulling these things out of the air. And Hobbes did what most of us do. He looked at the world that he knew and extrapolated from that. You and I, about 10 years ago, talked about a previous book that I co-authored called Sex at Dawn. Mm-hmm. And in that book, we called this tendency Flintstoneization, right? To sort of look at the world, and just make it older and call that prehistory. And that's what Hobbes was doing. He lived in an extremely violent, disease-ridden, conflict-ridden, insecure world, and he just assumed that it must have been even worse back in the day before the state was there to exert a bit of control over the situation.
So if it wasn't worse, what was it like?
Well, it turns out, Hobbes said famously that life before the state was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Before the advent of the state, let's look at solitary. It was much less solitary. Hunter-gatherers have a very intense sense of community and cooperation and mutual dependence. So certainly not solitary. Poor. Well, poverty is an invention of civilization. Poverty is a relative status where some people have much less than others. In hunter-gatherer societies, universally organized around egalitarianism and the sharing of resources. So in such a situation, there's no poverty because everyone has the same access to resources. Nasty, brutish, there's a lot of controversy about how violent societies were before the advent of agriculture. I think the evidence is quite strong that violence, extreme violence, and certainly organized warfare is very much a result of agriculture and accumulated resources, where there's something worth fighting over. In nomadic, immediate return hunter-gathering societies, there's no wealth. There's nothing gathered and accumulated that's worth stealing or defending. And short, one of the great misunderstandings that people have about prehistoric life, and I hear this all the time, is we've doubled the human lifespan. People died at 35. No one lived past 35. I even hear this from medical doctors, and this is hogwash. This is totally misinformed. No human being has ever been old at the age of 35. Our species regularly lives into their 70s and 80s, even as hunter-gatherers. The misunderstanding came about, as you know, from
infant mortality.
Statistical.
Yeah.
What?
It's infant mortality that was driving those numbers.
Exactly. And infant mortality is quite high among hunter-gatherers. So when you do the math, you get an average lifespan life expectancy at birth of around 35 to 40, but that doesn't mean anyone was ever old at 35 or 40.
Right. One wonders if that's the natural state of humankind and infant mortality was relatively high, if that was one of the things that evolution, I mean, just taking humans and human intent out of this altogether and viewing us as just another animal, if that's one of the ways that evolution had prepared us to have a relatively stable population, compared to our potential for fertility. But you point out in the book that also hunting-gathering people, mothers tend to nurse their babies for 2, 3, 4 years, and during that period of time, they're not fertile. They typically can't get pregnant. This, right. I remember reading, when I was reading Jefferson's diaries like 25 years ago, and he was, going on and on about how the Iroquois around him had babies every 5 to 7 years, and he was like, "How do they do that? How is that even possible?" And and he thought it was a marvelous thing. He thought it was a great, but he said he made a comment that women in Virginia were more like cows, basically, just constantly producing babies. Not the women themselves, but the situation. So modern medicine. Well, actually, I want to put this in a larger frame and then pull back from that for a moment. Neither you, in your book, Civilized to Death, or in me in my book, Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, are proposing that we just all of a sudden walk away from civilization and go live in the woods. What if we stop telling ourselves these myths about how horrible life was for humans before civilization, or how horrible life must be right now for humans who live, in the few remaining wild places in the world? If we stop telling ourselves those myths and start understanding these consequential and fundamental realities, and I think science is really bringing us there with things like, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett, the Equality Trust in the UK, that the more unequal a society becomes, the more you see disease, teenage pregnancy, homicide, suicide, crime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all, and it's not out of poverty, it's out of inequality, because it makes us crazy. So what are the things that you would suggest we learn from pre-agricultural people to bring into our post-agricultural society?
Well, that's a great question. I look at it as one of the images that I used in the book was visiting a zoo in Indonesia. That was a very sad, brutal place. It was just cages with primates trapped in these cages. And then years later, I visited the San Diego Zoo, which was a totally different experience. And the reason it's a different experience is that the San Diego Zoo is designed with an understanding of the animals that live there, where they come from, where they evolved, what food works best for them, what social system works best, how much space they need. And I think that that's what we need to do for ourselves. We're the only species that lives in zoos that we ourselves have designed. We've created our own conditions of captivity. And you're right, there's no way we're going back to a hunter-gatherer existence. So what we can do is we can create our artificial world with an understanding of the world that created us. And that will lead to much more meaningful, healthy lives. And you see it's happening already. It's an interesting thing in all these different fields. People are starting to understand that the way forward requires an understanding of our deep past. So in medicine, people are looking at what kind of diets did our ancestors eat? How much fiber? What about microbiome? How did they move? How often did they move? How vigorously did they move? You're seeing all sorts of areas with primal as a prefix, right? Because people are understanding that the primal blueprint actually really works well for our species. If you want to understand your dog's behavior, look at wolves, right? That's where your dog came from. So by understanding the behavior of wolves, you'll have insight into how to interact with your dog better.
Right. So we can learn from these. Chris, you can stick around for a little bit, right?
Please.
Okay. I'd love to extend this conversation. We'll be right back. It's 16 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We are talking with Christopher Ryan, Dr. Christopher Ryan. He is the author of a new book, Civilized to Death: The Price of Progress. Chris Ryan, PhD, is his website. That Chris Ryan is his Twitter handle.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you got to get this book and read it. It's just amazing. We'll be right back with my conversation with Chris Ryan. Welcome back. Chris, one of the things that when I was doing research for Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, one of the things that really fascinated me was reading Peter Farb. Are you familiar with Peter Farb?
I don't think so, no.
He wrote two books in the 60s. One was called Humankind, which a Dutch writer has basically rewritten a brand new version of that is almost a clone of Farb's book, except it's completely up to date with all kinds of new research. I'm forgetting his name right now.
Rutger Bregman.
Thank you, yes. And it's a brilliant book, but if you go back and read Humankind, by Peter Farb, you get where, what he was doing with that book. But he also wrote a book called Man's Rise to Civilization and the Native American, which was astonishing. It's the story of, he compiled first contact stories of Native American communities around North America. And I think he looks at 34 of them, as I recall. It's been more than 20 years since I read the book, so I'm sorry, it's not right at the tip of my brain, all the details. But many of, if not most of the Native American societies, at least in the American South and parts of the American West, were highly agricultural at that point, as we are. They were settled. The communities, for example, there was a giant tribe that lived near what we would today call New Orleans, and they were pyramid builders. And so that society, in order to maintain social stability, had a caste system, much like the old Indian caste system. There were 4 castes. The top caste was the sun gods. They were the ancestors of the sun gods. There were 2 middle castes. I don't remember the names. And the bottom caste was the equivalent of the untouchables, and they were called the stinkards. And the requirement in their society was that you always had to marry somebody who was 2 castes away from you. So every family had in their owned personal direct family sun gods, stinkers, and everybody else. And what it did was it created a social consensus for a high level of equality within the society, even though they had created these 4 castes largely for division of labor. Who's going to do what? But the stinkards weren't quite as oppressed as we see in India today. But that was just one example that just kind of blew my mind. The book is filled with them. Do you know of anybody who is, or have you considered proposing ways that we can reinvent American or modern human society in ways that promote egalitarianism? Or is it just, we all just start following Bernie Sanders? We have 30 seconds till we're going to boot into the next segment.
Yeah, we definitely have to all marry stinkers, I think. I've got a few in my family, for sure. Yeah, one of the things that I tried to do in Civilized to Death was talk about the question of inequality from a different angle. And the angle is that, we're always talking about the 1%ers and how unfair it is that they've accumulated all this wealth and resources. And it's true. I agree with that 100%. But the real irony is that they aren't happy either.
Right. Let's continue.
Inequality makes everyone miserable.
We'll continue this on the other side of this break. We're talking with Christopher Ryan. His new book, Civilized to Death, is just absolutely extraordinary. ChrisRyanPhD.com and that Chris Ryan on Twitter. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Hey, we have a new video over at ThomHartmann.com. It's about this movement that has, it's being characterized in the media as being just, fringe wackadoodles, crazy people on YouTube, stuff like that, who are talking about how Democrats are torturing children to get the adrenochrome out of them, and Hillary Clinton is eating babies, and the ship in the Suez Canal, and how, the really interesting one now, how if you get the vaccine for COVID, that it will change your race. Yes, something that will make white people absolutely hysterical. The problem is, this isn't just the Flat Earth Society. These aren't the people that we used to laugh at. This isn't just a few crazies on the edge. They just had a convention in Oklahoma. A serious convention where they were calling for Democrats to be put in front of a firing squad and shot. You need to check this out. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. Welcome back. Talking with Christopher Ryan about his new book, Civilized to Death. Chris, we were just during the break talking about how how Peter Farb was documenting how Native American societies that had become agricultural figured out internal cultural ways to have stability and egalitarianism. Jefferson wrote about the potlatch. He went to several of them where people would compete to see how much they could give away. The more you gave away at these annual events, the higher your status. And he also noted that that hoarding of goods was considered a mental illness among the Iroquois. These were relatively modern post-agricultural societies. What can we learn from that? What can we do with our society? Is it just a matter of, we all do what the Norwegians and the Danish have done, that Bernie Sanders is recommending, or are there other things?
Well, we need to approach it systematically and also individually. So systematically, it's the sorts of stuff that you've been advocating for a long time, and Bernie Sanders, sort of a social democrat approach to life where resources are distributed much more equitably. But on a personal level, and I was referring to this before the break, I think that we need to sort of illuminate the fact that extreme wealth hurts everyone involved. Being extremely wealthy, sure, you've got gold-plated faucets in your bathroom, but you're very isolated. It's psychologically a very difficult position to be in because you lose the sense of community. And the one thing, we're talking about diet and exercise patterns and all that, but the other sort of very important information that we learn when we study our ancestors is that the most important thing that we have to make us happy and to make our lives meaningful is a sense of community. If you feel embedded in a community of loving people, that's a more important factor in your health and longevity than your weight, whether you smoke or not, how much exercise you get. Any other factor you look at pales in comparison to whether you feel that you're part of a community of people who love you and have your back. When you're extremely wealthy, you sacrifice that. You don't have that kind of community because you're worried everyone's trying to take advantage of you. Everyone has an angle. They're trying to pitch you something. And ironically, when the money that we're all pursuing is corrosive to some of the most important things in life. So I think on a personal level, if we can understand that pursuing money is not actually going to solve your problems, it's going to create a lot of problems, and we can be much happier with much less, then it's not that radical a proposal. We're not trying to take away anyone's well-being. Everyone benefits in a more equitable society.
Yeah, I had a friend whose father invented Formica. He was born with a $700 million trust fund, and we knew him for 3 decades. And one day, just in a kind of random, he was showing me a print that he had just gotten by, one of the Dutch masters that was worth millions. And he just all of a sudden started crying, and I was like, what's going on? And he was like, you and Louise are, I think, the only friends that I've had in years who've never asked me for anything, who don't hit me up for donations, who don't see me as money bags, and it just broke my heart. I mean, this guy was a good friend, a very rich guy, but a good friend, and who I'd known for a long, long time. I just see there's so much pain in this world, and so much of it is being caused by greed. Chris, we're running out of time here. It's just why I'm kind of telling this story. But I think your book puts its finger. I think with this book you put your finger on some really critical values that we need to consider adopting as a society. And I strongly encourage everybody out there to get a copy of this extraordinary new book, Civilized to Death: The Price of Progress. Christopher Ryan, thanks so much for dropping by, Chris. Great talking.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime. ChrisRyanPhD.com and that Chris Ryan on Twitter.
Program. Call 202-808-9925.
That Chris Ryan, PhD.com, and well, the book. Just check out the book, Civilized to Death. You're going to love it. It's a short read. It's an easy read.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Our book in today's Free Speech TV Challenge Week means that throughout this week, if we hit the goal, if we hit our fundraising goal this week, then frontline funders Sandy and Stuart in Sunnyvale, California, are going to kick in an extra $5,000. So your donations are consequential, and they could unlock an additional $5,000. Your donation could be the one that helps unlock that $5,000. It's the last week of our fund drive. This is time for us to really catch up. We were quite behind the first week. We caught up a little bit in the second week, but we're still way behind. Not way behind, but we're still substantially behind. And therefore, Free Speech TV needs your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, or freespeech.org, of course, on the internet, and make your voice heard. Stand up for Free Speech TV. Be part of the only progressive television network in America. Just pretty amazing when you think about it, right? That we've got 3 conservative networks, plus the big corporate networks, and there's one fairly small progressive network, but we're like the little engine that could, right? We're getting up the hill, step by step by step. We're going to get there with your help. It's your help that makes it happen. It's your help that keeps Free Speech TV on the air. It's your help that enables us to get this program from here in Portland to you via all this electronic magical stuff where you can actually see a picture and see me, and it's really pretty amazing when you think about it. You know, all the technology, but that technology is not free. In fact, it's not even, some of it is not even cheap. So it does cost money to run a television network, and Free Speech TV has made the decision to do that exclusively with input, with donations from their viewers, or nearly exclusive. I know that they get some grants, but you know, mostly it is contributions from the viewers, from you. And your help is needed, and it is needed now. So please call Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Become a part of history. We are in the process of waking this country up, turning things around. We got past the Trump era. There's still a whole lot of fascists embedded in our government and in our structures, and certainly in our media. We will prevail, because what we're talking about is what's true and right and honest and fair. And ultimately, I truly believe that is what prevails. It's what I support. It's why I show up every day to do this program. And believe me, there are days when I would just as soon stay in bed. But this is important work that Louise and I and Joyce and Nate and Sean and Sue and Nigel and you know, all the people who work on this program, Jamie, Patrick, Gerald. I mean, it's just There's a whole Chase. There's a whole bunch of people who help make this program work, and all of us are doing it more as an avocation than a vocation. We are doing it because we believe in the possibility of a functional, egalitarian, multiracial society in this country that is where people can care for each other, where we are all our brothers and sisters keepers. And it won't continue without your help. And with your help, it can not only continue, but it can grow and strengthen. This is important stuff. It's an important time. It's a critical juncture in our nation's history. So let's really knock this one out of the park. Particularly, I know coming up next year, it's going to be silly season politics again, and everybody's going to be getting fundraising pitches. I've gotten 3 of them from Donald Trump this week, but he's the only politician so far I've gotten a fundraising pitch from. But it's going to be difficult next year for Free Speech TV. So let's get a solid foundation here, not only with that $5,000 match that match week, but also if you can please consider making a regular monthly contribution, $5, $10, $15, whatever works for you. There are, of course, premiums with a $20 gift. There's the Thom Hartmann University sticker or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker with a $50 gift. There's the tote bag. Real change comes from the grassroots. With a $75 gift, the Thom Hartmann mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of 2 Free Speech TV face masks or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. $240 gift. Your choice of the 2-book set, my book on oligarchy and my book on monopolies, or both autographed, or the virtual meet and greet where we get together on Zoom. With the $360 gift, it's the summer box set with the bumper sticker, the university bumper sticker, the Free Speech bumper sticker, the Take Action Pride sticker, the Real Change tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann Program mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us. But the real bottom line is this entire week, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, another $5,000 gets unlocked. But most importantly, if we hit our goals at the end of the week, we get to continue this program and this network for another 3 months or so. Because that's really what it has come down to. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Well, the Confederacy continues to live. Governor Tate Reeves, the governor of Mississippi, just signed a proclamation making April the Confederate Heritage Month in Mississippi. That's kind of the bad news. The good news is that it didn't get published on the state's websites. It got published over on Facebook, where there's a good contingent of racists and neo-Confederates to begin with. But what does this say about America, that a part of the country that literally was a police state, a fascist police state, there was no democracy left by 1861 in the South. It was completely controlled by a few thousand families who owned these massive plantations. And in my little riff that's over at thomhartmann.com for the supporters of our program, I go through some of the details of it. Just the sad, sad history of the South. It is really worth checking out. It's over at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and let's pick up some of your phone calls here. Adam in Youngstown, Ohio. Hey, Adam, what's on your mind today?
Tom, long time no speak. How's the shoulder?
It's much better. It's much better. Thank you.
Good deal.
What's on your mind?
I've heard some people, when you had the congressman on last Thursday, I even heard that all the conservative talking heads are now all up in arms about the Keystone Pipeline people and how they've lost all their work. I've got a better idea, and it's basic supply and demand. How about we build back better, either with the infrastructure plan or after it, and we run, instead of tar sands oil, life-giving water from our Gulf region that is getting slammed with too much water and pump it out west where we desperately need it.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that?
I don't think the architecture, or structure of the pipelines were put into place or designed or even, with any thinking even toward that. And, the places that need water, the places that have surpluses of water are very different from the places that produce oil and the places where they're refining the oil. So respectfully, I don't think that's going to work. So anyhow, Martin in Atlanta. Hey, Martin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, a few minutes ago, you said to a guy that was calling about corruption in politics that there isn't any in the Democratic Party. Now, I've been a Democrat, voting Democrat for 41 years.
Martin, if you were watching Free Speech TV, you were watching a pre-recorded show because our connection to free speech has crashed. So I am not. I don't know specifically what I said or who I was talking about. I can't really address that. Do you want to put this in a broader context rather than you responding to me?
Yeah, basically, there is corruption in the Democratic Party. Sorry to say, it's not as widespread as Republican. But my question basically would be, well, why would any Democrat vote against SB 1? What is it in SB 1 that is so egregious to them?
Oh, it's the ban on dark money. And you've got Democrats who are in the position that they're in because dark money has gotten them there, and they want to keep that. And I think that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are among them. From what I'm hearing, there's probably another half a dozen or maybe even more in the Senate. Thanks for the call, Daryl in Denville, New Jersey. In fact, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called this out 3 days ago. Daryl in Denville, New Jersey. You're on the air, Daryl. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Hey, just to follow up on that last call, one way you could fix that is term limits, right?
No. The problem, what we've seen now in the 6 or 8 states that have put into place term limits, is that there is this thing called institutional memory that is like really, really important. If you're a new member of Congress, you want to hook up with somebody who's been around for a long, long time so that they can tell you how things get done, where the bodies are buried, how who's most effective and who isn't, where the resources are, where the men's room is or the ladies' room, whatever. And what happens with term limits is the institutional memory of the institution itself, of the House of Representatives or the Senate for that state, is shattered. And so what steps in to replace that are the lobbyists who never go anywhere. So you've got lobbyists who've been there 20 and 30 years, and they know all those things. And so they take the new members of Congress under their wing and say, here's how it works. And there's multiple studies on this, Daryl. Nobody's even disputing this anymore, that when you have term limits, what you end for legislative bodies, I mean, you can argue that there's a difference when it comes to something like the president or the governorship. But when you have term limits for legislative bodies, what happens is the power of lobbyists is radically increased, and the effectiveness of the legislature is radically decreased.
Well, I guess I don't buy that, because what we have now is just so dysfunctional that we can't get anything big done. Nothing.
Yeah, but that's not because of the failure of term limits. That's because you've got Republicans who have rigged the system. It's gerrymanders across red states and purple states. It's voter suppression. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of reasons for that. But we do have term limits, Daryl. They're called elections.
But why are they doing that? They're doing that to keep their seat. That's why they're doing it. They're not doing it to preserve the seat for the next guy.
Of course.
They're doing it because they want to stay in office. And that's where term limits come in.
No, they will continue to do it to benefit their party, with the knowledge that after 6 years or 4 years or 8 years or whatever the term limit is in Congress, they will have been able to. This is another reason why term limits actually increase the power of lobbyists, is if you give up your career to go serve in a state legislature or in the federal legislature, knowing that you're only going to be there 8 years. And during those 8 years, the lobbyists are like, hey, 8 years from now, you've got to provide for your family. We will make sure here at Eli Lilly and Company, we will make sure to give you a $2 million a year job. No problem. For the rest of your life, if you just make sure that our new drug gets approved.
Tom, but that's what the founders intended.
No, it's not.
They didn't intend these guys. Tom, they did not intend these guys to go to Washington, D.C. and stay there for the rest of their lives.
They absolutely
That's
did.
not what
They absolutely did. You have members of the founding generation who spent their entire lives in politics. Yes, that is what they intended. Daryl, this debate is beginning to sound stupid. I'm gonna move along. Lee in Winter Park, Florida. Hey, Lee, what's up?
Hey, Tom, I'm almost embarrassed to be asking you this question. I feel like I should know the answer, but all these Republican governors that are getting ready to cut off the enhanced unemployment, where did they get the power to cut off a federally mandated benefit?
It's because the way unemployment insurance works, and this was put into law back in the 1930s when the first national unemployment insurance program was put into place. I think it was 1935 by Franklin Roosevelt. And back then, states' rights was a big deal. The reason why states' rights was a big deal was because mostly states in the South wanted to do what they could to keep down black people. And so the law says that the federal government does not send money to you as an unemployed person. Instead, the federal government sends money to the states as a large chunk of money. They're not block granted, but it's almost like that. And then the states define their own criteria for what is unemployed and for how long people can have unemployment benefits and under what conditions they can hold them or lose them. So in some states, you can get unemployment benefits for 3 months, for other states 6 months, other states a year. Some states will take the extra money and pass it along to you. Other states can say, no, we're not going to pass that money along, so it just stays in Washington, D.C. It's just what it is, Lee. What we're looking at is this ideology, this belief on the part of conservatives that all people, and this kind of gets back to the conversation with Chris Ryan, this belief that all people are basically evil and greedy and lazy. And therefore, you've got to whip them. You've got to poke them with a stick. You've got to threaten them to get them to participate in a positive way in society. And it's not true. That's not human nature. There may be a small percentage of people who are like that, but the vast majority of Americans, I mean, like well over 95%, according to most studies, are not grifters and are not looking for an easy handout. And when they take benefits from the government, it's because they actually need them. And so, these Republicans are just causing mind-boggling amounts of pain and misery and suffering with this bizarre ideology that is grounded in a fallacy.
Well, what really infuriates me because, a part of me says, all right, if your job has returned, you should go back to work.
Yeah.
But then they're doing surgery with a hatchet instead of a scalpel.
Yep.
So there are a lot of people whose jobs haven't returned as of yet.
That's correct. And there are some jobs that, some people have taken a break and they're looking at these things going, $7 an hour, I'm not sure. And it's interesting how many employers around the country are now getting up toward or into the $15 an hour range and discovering that suddenly there's no shortage of people looking for work. Right. They go from going, gee, we can't get anybody to come in and bus tables or be a wait person or, server staff or whatever. When they're offering $3 an hour or $5 or $7 an hour, but when they start offering $10 or $15 an hour, $12 an hour, $14 an hour, in some cases even more, suddenly they've got a lot of people. Lee, thank you for the call. It's a great question. That was not a dumb question at all. Most people don't know, how the law was passed back in 1935. We'll be right back. It's 45 minutes past the hour. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls right after this. And welcome back. Canyon in Renton, Washington. Hey, Canyon, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I think you can hear me now. I think that's great.
I can. Oh, yeah. You called way back at the very beginning. So what's on your mind?
I did, because earlier you're, lobbying a little bit for Democrats to call out their, Republican colleagues as corrupt and using, that buzzword corruption, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, Well, I think one issue is that the DNC, which really controls who gets to run in particular offices in so many races, is a well-oiled machine that, has shown that they're corrupt, especially with Donna Brazile coming out to Bernie Sanders and apologizing for, helping to put the DNC's thumb on the 2016 Democratic primary.
I agree. I agree. And there's something we can do about it, Kenyon. And that something is we can get inside the Democratic Party. And that's happening all over the country. Progressives are taking over local Democratic parties in county after county, precinct after precinct, city after city, and step by step, state after state. There's a lot of old Clinton-era dinosaurs left over who went along, in the early 90s with the idea that, hey, we got to suck up to some of these big corporations because there's, the unions have been destroyed. Reagan was successfully destroyed the unions. There's a lot of those Democrats still around. There's a number of them still in Congress. And the only way we're going to replace them is by getting inside the Democratic Party. Standing on the outside complaining about it is worse than useless.
I hear you, but it's, replacing individuals one at a time is, a great idea. And eventually, I agree with your philosophy that will work. But what won't work is what I think the best solution would be to, make the head of the DNC a more open and transparent process to deciding who gets to control the Democratic National Committee rather than having...
The head of the DNC is elected. I mean,
they're appointed.
No, it's elected. It's an elected position. It's a the
president gets to handpick, just like Obama picked Wasserman Schultz.
Oh, well, that's because the president is the head of the Democratic Party. You're talking about the administration of the party. But when the president is out of office, the party picks its head by virtue of an election.
I know, but I think if by virtue of an election we would have saw Keith Ellison leading the DNC, and we would have saw a much different result. We would have saw.
I think we would have seen Keith Ellison heading the DNC. Well, Keith Ellison did have a prominent role in the DNC for quite a while, but I think you would see him leading the DNC when more progressives are inside the DNC. Back in 2009, after Obama got elected, the Republicans went into shock. And what did they do? In 2009, they organized this campaign to get Republicans, to get Tea Partiers, actually, because the Tea Party followed, in 2009, the Koch brothers kind of rolled this out. This whole Concord whatever it is that I used to play these clips from, where they said, the most powerful political position in America is precinct committee person. Become a precinct committee person. You can write the party's platform. You can pick the primary candidates. You get to determine the future of the party. And they were absolutely right. And those guys took over the Republican Party in less than a decade. And we need to do the same thing with the Democratic Party. Kenyon, thank you for the call. We'll be back. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So a while ago at Davos, Michael Dell, the computer billionaire who started out selling computers out of his dorm room in college. I was running CompuServe forums back in the day. This is in the late 70s or the early 80s, and he was selling them on CompuServe in my forums. And, now he's worth billions. And somebody asked him, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is proposing a 70% tax bracket for people who make the kind of money you make. What do you think of that? And his response was, a 70% tax rate? Name a country where that ever worked. Ever. And it turns out there is such a country, and apparently Michael Dell didn't know this. I think a lot of Americans don't know this, that there was a country that had its greatest period of prosperity in its entire history with a top tax rate that was above 70%. In fact, it hit 90% for more than half the time, and that was the United States of America. It's a new video over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Mark in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Oh, hi, Tom. So I was thinking that maybe that part of the problem of the government that's dysfunctional is that House members only serve for 2 years. Why not serve for 4 years, come in with, say, a wave of, if a Democrat wins the presidency, then House members come in with him for 4 years. If they can't get anything done in 4 years, then maybe it's time to go back. But, I mean, a 4-year term for House reps, they're not always dialing for dollars.
Yeah.
You know, every 2 years.
You know, it's an academic point, Mark, because it would require an amendment to the Constitution to change it, which is not going to happen.
Right.
But and if you're proposing that as a way to then embrace term limits, I would still point out that what term limits do is they radically increase the power of lobbyists and thus the power of big corporations and big money, and they diminish the power of individual legislators. And that's why, if you listen to right-wing talk radio, you will constantly hear them talking about the wonders of term limits. It's because it makes it, yeah, it increases the power of special interests, the people who fund right-wing radio. Mark, thank you for the call. Israel in Chandler, Arizona. Hey, Israel, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm calling to respond to one of your earlier callers who made a comment to the effect of if he didn't like a particular candidate, and I presume he meant a Democrat, that he would not vote for that person. And nothing gets my goat more as a voter and as a citizen that to hear that kind of comment. Here's a quick suggestion for every voter. Go crazy in the primaries. Work for whoever you think best meets your ideal of a congressman or a president or municipal whatever. But when it comes to the election, here's my North Star. It's the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, et cetera, I look at the candidates and I say, which one of these two candidates is going to get us more further down the road to a more perfect union? And that's who I vote for. And by the way, in my lifetime, it's always been a Democrat, not a Republican.
Brilliant, brilliant. Very well said, Israel. Thank you very much. That's great.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Peter in Philadelphia. Hey, Peter, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, thanks for taking my call. And I agree with the previous caller on the more perfect union. But very simply, Tom, for all these states that are putting forward the voter suppression laws.
And voter nullification as well. They're also saying that votes can be thrown out or ignored.
Even more important. That's even more to the point. Good point, Tom. I would like the Democrats, any Democrat, to put forth what I would call the no taxation without representation proposal. Sounds good. Sounds like something Republicans can get behind. And very simply, if my vote is purged for whatever reason, is thrown out, that vote is my membership card to citizenship. So if I'm no longer having my vote, I don't pay taxes.
Yeah, I love it. I've seen that. I'm not sure if somebody called into this show and suggested it, or if I read it on one of the message board, Daily Kos or Democratic Underground or something like that. But I have seen that proposal before, and odds are it would never get put into law. But particularly given all these scandals about billionaires paying less than 1% income tax when all the rest of us are struggling here. I'm with you, Peter. Peter, thank you. Matt in Iowa City, Iowa. Hey, Matt, what's up?
Hello. Yes, I've always been curious for the last 20 years why the fairness doctrine hasn't been reinstated in some way, or it's just unbelievable to me that people are believing some of the most outlandish things. And I think the voting population would really embrace fairness doctrine, just like they embraced trying to have a fair and free election last time.
I think rather, I get what you're saying, and I would love to see the fairness doctrine come back. The fairness doctrine did not mean that on my program, for every left-wing rant I do, I have to invite a guest on who does a right-wing rant. It did not mean that a radio station that carried my show also has to carry Sean Hannity's show. What it meant was that you have to program in the public interest, and that when the ownership or management of the station presents a view on the air, which is a very different thing. They used to have editorials on radio and TV stations back in the day. When they present their editorials, just like newspapers do, then they have to present an opposing view. It was really a very small slice of what went on. When I was 17 years old and I worked as a floor director at WJIM TV, and then a couple of years later when I was helping produce a radio call-in show for Chuck Drake back at WITL. Part of my job when Chuck Drake, who owned the station, and when the family that owned WJIM would do their editorials, part of my job was finding someone who could rebut them. But it was only when it was the editorials. I think more important is that we attack ownership. We need to bring back the local ownership laws. That will do more to create diversity in our media than anything else. Matt, I got to run, but thank you for the call. And thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, and hopefully everything working. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. That includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
Well, it's Challenge Week here on Free Speech TV. Challenge Week means that throughout this week, if we hit the goal, if we hit our fundraising goal this week, then frontline funders Sandy and Stuart in Sunnyvale, California, are going to kick in an extra $5,000. So your donations are consequential, and they could unlock an additional $5,000. Your donation could be the one that helps unlock that $5,000. It's the last week of our fund drive. This is time for us to really catch up. We were quite behind the first week. We caught up a little bit in the second week, but we're still way behind. Not way behind, but we're still substantially behind. And therefore, Free Speech TV needs your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, or freespeech.org, of course, on the internet. And make your voice heard. Stand up for Free Speech TV. Be part of the only progressive television network in America. Just pretty amazing when you think about it, right? That we've got 3 conservative networks, plus the big corporate networks, and there's one fairly small progressive network, but we're like the little engine that could, right? We're getting up the hill, step by step by step. We're going to get there with your help. It's your help that makes it happen. It's your help that keeps Free Speech TV on the air. It's your help that enables us to get this program from here in Portland to you via all this electronic magical stuff where you can actually see a picture and see me. And it's really pretty amazing when you think about it, you know, all the technology. But that technology is not free. In fact, it's not even, some of it is not even cheap. So it does cost money to run a television network, and Free Speech TV has made